push it back 2 months. We've waited years for this fight. What's up, guys? The Ginger.
And the Bear.
And y'all, there's been a lot of hype, a lot of talk about a really great upcoming matchup, which is your finger clicking the button to hit that like button for the algorithm. That being said, guys, it is kind of an incredibly weird time in MMA. Call us prophets, call us Mystic Mac, whatever have you. We predicted Tony and Khabib would not happen again. In our wildest dreams, we would not have guessed it was going to be because of a global pandemic. Yeah. never in this life or the next would we have said that.
And we're deeply saddened by this fact.
I feel like a genie or something in a story where the wording of the wish kind of blew everything out.
Yep.
It's a really weird situation, though, and it leaves us all wondering, what should the UFC do? There's been a lot of discussions.
Yeah, so technically, Tony versus Khabib has not been officially canceled.
Yeah.
But it's been basically canceled.
Essentially, the situation as it stands now is that Tony is in the United States. Khabib is currently in Dagestan in Russia. There have been flights shut down in Russia, flights from Europe, which technically Russia is not part of the EU, so it gets kind of complicated. But the US has shut down flights from Europe. The US has shut down flights from most places. So, notwithstanding some type of huge intervention from both like Trump or the federal government at some level and Putin or the Russian government at some level, there's not a way to get Khabib and Tony out of their respective countries and into either each other's or a different country as things stand right now. So effectively, Khabib versus Tony seems like it's ixnayed. It's a done deal. It's not going to happen, which has led to some rumors, and honestly, they seem to have a bit of substantiation behind them.
That Justin Gaethje will be Tony's next opponent.
At UFC 249, as a late replacement, essentially. And I think this is absolutely terrible. Horrible. And super short-sighted by the UFC.
First of all, Justin Gaethje does not deserve basically an interim title shot. He does not deserve that.
I think he deserves a top 5 opponent.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he deserves, like you said, this would have to be an interim title shot. Tony was the interim champion. He was scheduled to fight for the belt. There's nothing else that you can call this except for an interim belt, right? Gaethje doesn't deserve to fight for it. He hasn't beaten anybody in the top 5.
The only one that I could see fighting Ferguson right now is Dustin.
And even Dustin, I would argue, does not deserve it because he hasn't won since he lost to Khabib. And so lightweight's in just a very bad predicament. And that's on top of the fact
lightweight's always in a bad predicament.
It is. Like, Tony shouldn't fight anybody else besides Khabib. Just if I'm Tony Ferguson and I'm looking out for my own career, it would be so stupid for him to do anything except wait for Khabib, especially because most likely within 2 to 3 months, he'd be able to fight him. It's just super short-sighted by the UFC to try to make a matchup, because what happens if Tony's fighting Gaethje
and blows out his ACL, blows out his knee?
He's Dark Souls rolling across the octagon and he tears his knee up. He tears a ligament. He's out for 6 months to a year. Suddenly, Khabib versus Tony can't happen. And if they just wait for 2 months now,
this will blow over in 2 months.
Yeah.
In 2 months, these guys have trained. Maybe there's some way you can compensate both of them so they can keep doing their training camp to the best of their abilities, but then have it ready, have a banger ready to go in 2 months, because essentially there's been 4 cards canceled at this point. All they need to do is just shift that time frame back. Just a couple of months, and then they're good to go.
And UFC 249 doesn't need Khabib or Tony to fight on it in order for the event to still take place. The UFC has plenty of fighters that are, if we're going to do it in America, because what I'm seeing thrown around now is they're trying to do it in Florida, and Florida has the most lax quarantine standards out of any state in the U.S. right now. And so if they can just do it with fighters that are in the domestic U.S., you could still put on a banger of a card. Poirier's tweeted about getting on there. Schedule Rosenstreich versus Ngannou. Let them headline it. Like, if you just take the best and biggest names on all the fights that have been canceled and throw them on UFC 249, like, I love Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson is not a draw to carry a pay-per-view by himself anyways.
No, he's not.
So why are you jeopardizing Tony versus Khabib? Because I think Tony is only like a true pay-per-view draw if it's that fight against Khabib or if it's a fight against McGregor.
Conor,
and so like, why are you blowing the Khabib-Tony fight, which will be huge, in order to throw Tony on a card by himself when you could just take Tony off the card entirely and throw together like an awesome card that I would be incredibly hyped on?
The only way it makes sense strategically, if they really think Justin can actually beat Ferguson, which is another video.
Which is gonna, like, subscribe, guys, because that's gonna be our next video. You know, another thing that I'm curious about is if they're trying to, if Dana's trying to get some way to make the Conor Khabib matchup come together. Like, if he's somehow thinking like, oh, if we throw Justin and Gaethje, Justin and Tony in there, Tony, I think, would be the heavy favorite. But you never know. It's MMA, right? Tony's not getting any younger. If Tony loses, it's hard to make an argument that Gaethje shouldn't get the next title shot, but Gaethje probably is not going to win that fight without taking significant damage and maybe having to take 6 months to a year off.
And then where does that Khabib
oh,
fighting?
wait, Khabib needs to fight somebody. Is he going to fight Dustin again? No. Oh, McGregor, right? Like, I think that would be terrible. I think Conor, for his own sake, as a McGregor fan, I want to see him get another fight under his belt before he takes on Khabib, if not 2 fights.
You can't fight Cowboy at 170 and then go and rematch the biggest beatdown as of yet that you've had in Khabib and expect to perform at your optimal level.
But they'll just say like, oh, well, we wanted Tony and Gaethje, but Tony lost and Gaethje's out.
Right.
Or if Tony wins and gets injured, oh, we wanted Tony and Gaethje can't fight him now. He was on a win streak, but he lost. Dustin lost. Oh, wait, who can you fight? I guess McGregor's the only option. That's the only thing that does concern me, and that's the only motivation where I can see this even making sense. But it's so short-sighted, because 2 months, then Khabib or Tony is bigger than ever. If Tony wins, that sets up a McGregor title shot if he gets one more fight. Well, I'd love to see that fight. Or Gaethje. If you do McGregor, Gaethje, wouldn't you love to see whoever wins that fight for the title? I would.
I would love that. You know what's really interesting and a little bit sinister, and I mean, Khabib definitely, he left the United States, went to Russia. Why? And it was just to finish up his camp at home when he could already have done AKA maybe.
Well, it's because he knew California was about to shut down. Like, California's quarantine is way stricter than most of the rest of the country. So
fair.
He knew AKA was going to be shut down, and like, he was already the only fighter that was allowed to go even and train in AKA, but they heard that there were going to be like much more stringent quarantine restrictions, and Dana had told them that it would not be in the domestic United States.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then Khabib and his team went to Russia so they could keep on training.
All right. I don't know. I was putting my tinfoil hat and be like, maybe he wanted to duck Tony and then fight Conor instead.
Out of the two of us, I'm definitely a bigger Khabib hater than you are, and even I am like, I think Khabib wants the Tony fight more than anybody on the planet.
I will say that I think that there's obviously, he knows a lot more government officials in Russia than he knows in the US. 100%. And why would he not ask, be like, hey, are you guys thinking about shutting down the country? What's going on? You know, like, Russia hasn't really been doing anything about this coronavirus. What do you think? I don't know, like, maybe it just wasn't thought ahead of.
I think it's probably like they were scrambling so hard and they're like, okay, well, what the hell can we do? And that's the other thing. I think it should be postponed anyways, just because it's going to have an asterisk over it no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, if whoever loses this fight, even if they don't say it themselves, their coaches aren't going to come out and be like, yeah, that wasn't the best
camp ever.
But after the fight, they'll be like, this was not the best camp ever. Like, this coronavirus stuff, it was so confusing. We didn't know where we were going. We were flying all over the place. The jet lag for Khabib alone is going to be ludicrous because he flew from Dagestan to AKA to Dagestan. And it's just like, I think it just push it back 2 months. We've waited years for this fight. I would so much rather push it back 2 months, give the fighters, even just with everything else going on, like, let them have an actual training camp more than anything at this point.
This is probably one of the most prestigious MMA fights that we can have right now.
Probably ever, honestly. Like, when's the last time in a division as deep as lightweight you've had 2 people going on this length of win streaks? And never. Never. Like, Krokop Fedor was the closest thing ever. And it's just, this is, like, why put this in jeopardy? There's no, like, McGregor will still be there, and it'll just be a bigger fight. Assuming McGregor can win his next fight, boom. Like that's a McGregor Tony, great.
And like we did in the can Justin Gaethje actually beat McGregor. I mean, like Justin Gaethje, I feel like is the best sacrifice for Conor McGregor to hype up either a Tony fight or another Khabib fight.
Like it, honestly, Gaethje, Hooker, like the guys that you could match McGregor up with, who are available, who are ranked highly,
knocked out.
I think he matched up incredibly favorably with them, even against Dustin, who's improved a lot. I'd love to see that fight happen again, but I would still give McGregor
a slight edge.
I was going to say like a significant edge, like a 60-40. 60-40. I think that's fair.
Yeah, 60-40 is it. My thing with Dustin is I just feel like he fights too much with his heart, and he will be susceptible again for that mental warfare.
Which McGregor will bring. The only reason he didn't bring it against Cowboy is Cowboy was basically talking shit against himself the whole time, and McGregor's like, oh, I will let my man sit back and destroy himself. That being said, guys, comment down below what you think. Would you rather the UFC throws together a card with Tony at the top?
Or for them to actually freaking wait?
I cannot imagine you guys would be happy. Like, Tony versus Justin would be awesome, but it's like you're offering us a really nice dinner, but it's like a home-cooked meal when we were getting to dine on a Michelin star, like, chef's course.
With $100,000 in our pocket.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, but why aren't you happy? This is still good food. And it's like, yeah, bitch, but it's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like, any other time, if it was any other matchup that was getting canceled, Tony versus Justin sounds like a wet dream for a fight fan. But man, I cannot imagine. Especially, like, like we said, UFC 249, name the fights of the fights that were canceled that you would want to see round out that card. Because you can make up a hell of a good pay-per-view card. Arguably, probably one of the best pay-per-view cards, top to bottom. Yeah. I'm so mad. Yeah. And check out our breakdown if Justin versus Tony happens, how that fight will go. Ginger,
fair.
We're out.